They say the past is written in stone. But what if those stones are whispering secrets we were never meant to hear? What if our ancestors left behind messages, not legends but warnings, traces of travelers who stepped out of time itself? Today we're diving into 5 shocking proofs that time travel may not just be a fantasy, but a hidden reality woven into our history. And I warn you, what you are about to hear may challenge the way you see everything. History, technology, even your own place in time. The ancient astronaut carvings. Imagine this. You're walking through the ruins of an ancient Mayan temple. The air is thick, humid, and heavy with centuries of silence. Shine a light across the carved walls, expecting to see warriors, kings, and gods. But instead, you see something impossible. A figure sitting inside what looks like a spacecraft, hands on levers, smoke curling beneath the base like rocket fire. This is no ordinary carving. It's known as the sarcophagus lid of Pakal the Great, a Mayan ruler. For decades, people have stared at it, confused. Some say it shows him descending into the underworld. Others, they whisper something bolder. This is proof of an astronaut in the ancient world. The man leans forward, surrounded by what look eerily like controls. Flames appear to burst from beneath him. His posture is not spiritualized, technical, mechanical, almost modern. Now pause. The Mayans lived over 1,000 years ago. They had no knowledge of rocket engines, of spacecraft, of flight beyond birds in the sky. So how can a carving look this way? Was it a coincidence? Or was it memory and echo of something witnessed? Something so extraordinary it had to be carved into stone. Some believe this is not a god, not a myth, but a time traveler human from the future, captured in history's oldest photograph. Skeptics will say, it's just mythology. You're projecting modern ideas onto old art. But ask yourself this: why does the carving look more like a cockpit than a throne? Why flames, levers, and control panels? Why is it so hauntingly specific? Here's the twist: ancient cultures around the world hold similar stories. In India, there are texts thousands of years old describing Vimanas, flying machines that roared across the skies. In Egypt, some carvings resemble helicopters and planes. Were they imagination or memory? And if they were memory, whose memory was it? That's the question that gnaws at us. Because if even one of these carvings is not metaphor but history, then we're staring at proof. Proof that humans have stepped outside of time and left their shadow in stone. And here's the emotional truth. When I look at those carvings, I don't just see mystery. I see humanity reaching out across centuries. It's as if someone long ago carved a message saying we were here, came from a place you cannot imagine. One day you'll understand. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel connected. It makes you wonder if time itself is a bridge, and we are only beginning to notice the footprints across it. But this is only the beginning. The carvings are a whisper. The next proof is louder, harder to dismiss: an object that should not exist, buried for centuries. An object that forces us to ask, did someone from the future do something in the past? Because when archaeologists opened a 400-year-old tomb in China, they didn't just find history, they found a watch. A Swiss watch in a tomb. Sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. In 2008, a team of archaeologists in Guangxi, China, opened a tomb that had been sealed for more than 400 years. Inside lay the body of a woman from the Ming Dynasty, resting in silence for centuries. But as they brushed away the dust of ages, their tools struck something hard. It wasn't jade, it wasn't gold. It was a tiny object, no, bigger than a ring. And when they cleaned it, they froze. Because etched on the metal were the words, Swiss. It wasn't an ancient relic. It wasn't from the Ming Dynasty. It was a watch, Swiss-made watch. Think about that for a moment. The tomb had been sealed since the 1500s, yet in the woman's coffin lay a modern object, a watch centuries before watches like that even existed. How could it be there? Some say it was a hoax, and maybe it slipped in later. But experts confirmed the tomb had not been opened in centuries. Others argue it's impossible that the object was misidentified. But those who believe in time travel see it differently. What if a traveler from our world, our time, stepped too far into the past and dropped something as simple as a watch? What if history itself accidentally caught them red-handed? The thought is terrifying and strangely human. Because haven't we all, at some point, left something behind? A wallet, a ring, a watch? Imagine doing that, but in the wrong century. The emotional weight of this story isn't just about the object. It's about the human hand that once wore it, the life behind it. Someone somewhere may have slipped through. Time in their mistake still whispers to us hundreds of years later. Here's the twist. When the story of the watch broke online, many dismissed it immediately. Fake, they said. Impossible. But think about how quickly we push away the impossible. Because if we admit it's real, then everything changes. A simple watch can survive from the future into the past, then time isn't just a river flowing one way. It's an ocean vast, turbulent, with currents we barely understand. And just like the ocean, perhaps we've only seen the surface. The Swiss watch in the tomb may be proof, for it may be a coincidence we can explain. But either way, it stirs something deep inside us, as it asks us, what would you leave behind if you traveled through time? What small trace of your existence might live on, confusing people centuries later? It makes us wonder if proof of time travel isn't rare at all. Maybe we resurrounded by it. Maybe we just don't recognize it. And if that thought chills you, wait until you see our next proof. Because sometimes, time travelers don't just leave objects. Sometimes they leave photographs. And in 1941, picture surfaced that left the world stunned because one man looked like he was plucked straight out of the future. The 1941 hipster photo. History is supposed to be predictable. Photographs, especially old ones, capture a frozen truth. But sometimes, even the camera lies. In 1941, a small town in British Columbia, Canada, gathered for the reopening of a bridge. Photographers snapped the scene, and newspapers preserved the moment. For decades, it was nothing more than an old photograph of ordinary people. Until someone looked closer. There, in the crowd of 1941, stands a man who doesn't belong. While everyone else wears suits, hats, and dresses of the era, he's dressed like someone from the 21st century. Graphic t-shirt beneath a hoodie. Sunglasses that didn't exist at the time. A camera that looks decades ahead of its invention. He looks less like a man of the 1940s, and more like a tourist from today. The photograph became famous, the time-traveling hipster. Skeptics argue it's nothing strange. And they say the shirt was possible, the sunglasses were experimental, the camera just an early model. But look closer, the way he stands, the way he stares at the camera. It's as if he knows something the others don't. Everyone else seems frozen in time. He seems alive, awake, as though he doesn't quite belong in their world. And here's the question that chills you. What if he didn't? Think of what that must feel like, to walk among people who have no idea you are not of their time, to breathe their air, hear their laughter, knowing you cannot tell them the truth. It's not just about fashion or cameras. It's about isolation, loneliness, the pain of being surrounded by a world that isn't yours. If this man was a time traveler, he wasn't a scientist or a superhero. He was human, stood in a crowd, just like us, and left behind only a photograph, a single mistake that gave him away. Here's the twist. What if there are more? How many old photographs sit in boxes, attics, archives, hidden faces staring back at us? Maybe you've seen one without realizing it. A stranger in old clothes but not quite right, a smile too modern, a hairstyle out of place. What if proof of time travel isn't just rare, but everywhere scattered across history like broken glass? The man in the photograph may always remain a mystery, but it leaves us with something powerful and ache in the soul. Because when we look at him, we're not just asking, is this proof of time travel? We're asking, what would it feel like to be lost in time? To be cut off from everything you know, everyone you love, in a world that isn't yours? And that's what makes this photograph so haunting. It's not just a curiosity, it's a mirror. Because deep down, we all know what it feels like to be out of place, to stand in a crowd and feel like you don't belong. Maybe that's why this story connects so deeply with us. But photographs are only part of the story. Because long before cameras, long before modern inventions, there were words. Ancient words. And in those words, we find descriptions of technology that shouldn't exist for thousands of years: flying machines, time devices, even weapons of terrible power. Our fourth proof isn't a photograph or an artifact. It's something far more dangerous. It's knowledge. Knowledge that shouldn't exist in the past, unless someone from the future placed it there. Ancient knowledge that shouldn't exist. What if the greatest proof of time travel isn't hidden in objects or photographs, but in words? Because words are timeless. They carry knowledge across centuries. And sometimes, that knowledge seems to come from the future. The Vimanas of India thousands of years ago. Indian texts describe something extraordinary: flying machines called Vimanas. These weren't vague myths. They were detailed accounts. They spoke of machines that roared through the skies, powered by engines, capable of devastating destruction. They described battles fought in the air, beams of energy raining down like weapons we only invented in the modern age. How could ancient writers describe aircraft when humanity would not achieve powered flight until the 20th century? Some say it was imagination, myth. But others ask, or was it memory? What if those ancient writers weren't inventing but recording? What if they had seen machines from another age, travelers who fell into the past, their technology burning into memory, written down as scripture? Think about it. When we read these descriptions today, we see technology. But imagine living thousands of years ago, watching a machine soar across the sky. You'd have no words for it. You'd describe it as best you could with poetry, with myth, with awe. And maybe that's exactly what they did. Leonardo da Vinci's impossible machine centuries later. In Renaissance Italy, another man seemed haunted by the future. Leonardo da Vinci. He sketched helicopters, tanks, and submarines hundreds of years before such things existed. Where did these visions come from? He was an artist, yes, a genius, yes. But some of his designs were so advanced, they wouldn't be built until the 20th century. How could one man dream of technology centuries ahead of his time? Here's the twist. Some whisper that Leonardo was indeed just a genius, he was a receiver. That perhaps he had glimpsed knowledge not of his own time, but of ours. Some even believe he was himself a traveler, hiding his truth in sketches and notes, passing future into past under the cover of art. It makes you wonder, how much of the future is already buried in our past? Because knowledge is a shadow. It cannot be destroyed. It only waits to be rediscovered. Chronovisor. The Vatican's time machine, and then we come to one of the strangest stories of all. In the 1960s, an Italian priest claimed that the Vatican possessed a device called the chronovisor, a machine that could see through time. Not travel, not physically step into the past, but view it like a television screen showing history unfold. He claimed to have seen Jesus at the crucifixion. He claimed to have witnessed ancient events no human alive should have been able to see. The Vatican denied it. They said it was a lie, a fantasy. But for decades, whispers persisted that somewhere, hidden beneath marble and gold, lies a machine that can pierce the veil of time. If the story is true, it raises a question that chills the soul. Why would such a machine be hidden? Maybe because truth is dangerous. Maybe because if people saw the past with their own eyes, faith, power, and history itself would collapse. Or maybe because someone else had already seen too much. Here's the emotional twist. Whether it's the Vimanas, Da Vinci's sketches, or the chronovisor, the question isn't just about proof, it's about longing. Why do humans, across every age, dream of flying, of traveling through time, of glimpsing what lies beyond the present? Maybe it's because deep down we remember. Maybe time travel isn't just a theory. Maybe it's in our blood. A faint echo passed down across centuries, like a half-forgotten dream. The past is never really gone. The future is never really far away. Maybe they touch more often than we realize. And sometimes, those touches leave behind words, drawings, machines, don't belong. But our final proof goes deeper than artifacts or texts, because in the early 2000s, someone didn't just claim to have seen the future. He claimed to have lived in it. And when he spoke, the world listened. Our final proof is perhaps the most haunting. It was 1951, in the middle of a bustling night in Times Square. Crowds were moving fast, cars honking, the glow of neon filling the air. Suddenly, witnesses say, a man appeared confused, panic-dressed in 19th century clothing. His boots were handmade, suit outdated by almost a century. He looked around as if he had never seen a skyscraper in his life. Before anyone could even make sense of what was happening, tragedy struck. The man darted across the street and was hit by a car. He died instantly. But the mystery only deepened. Police found his identification. His name, Rudolph Fuentes. They searched records and discovered something. Hitchcock and Rudolph Fuentes had disappeared in 1876. His family had reported him missing. Had gone out for a walk one evening and never returned. He had been missing for 75 years, till he suddenly appeared in the middle of Times Square. His body had coins in his pockets minted in the 1800s, still shining as if brand new. His watch was antique, yet ticking perfectly. Even the receipt in his coat pocket was dated 1876. No one could explain it, scientists argued. Historians denied it. But the facts remained. A man missing from the 19th century reappeared in the 20th, alive for just a moment, long enough to leave us a message in silence. That time does not forget us. And here lies the question that keeps us awake at night. What if time itself is not a straight line, but a circle? What if at any moment we could slip by accident, by fatin to another age? Maybe time travel isn't something to invent in the future. Maybe it has already happened. Maybe it has always happened. Maybe it's the reason these fragments exist. The watch, the carvings, the travelers who vanished is because time has already chosen who it lets slip through its cracks. The most haunting thought of all is this. What if you are next? What if one day you walk out your door, find yourself in a world that doesn't yet exist, one that has long been forgotten? And if that happens, would anyone believe your story? Or would you, like so many before, become just another proof that time travel was real in the past?